if somebody says spiritual to me, I think of music, poetry, beauty, love.
Quickly, I had polio when I was 2 years of age. Well, when one begins speaking about God, I was relatively in good hands. As far as polio was concerned, there were other people that ended up in iron lungs in order to help them breathe. My both legs were affected. The muscles in my left leg are completely atrophied, partially so to a very great extent in my right leg, but there's more muscle in my right leg. I had some surgery when I was 7. When I was 21, I was in the hospital for 4 months, where I used to wear braces, and my left knee was fused, thereby negating the use of a brace, so my left leg is stiff. We were very poor, and the operations would have been very expensive, but the March of Dimes paid for my operations, for which I have been very, very grateful. I grew up in a family where my music has played a very important part of my life. I was the youngest of 5. My father was a tailor, went to work every morning, came home, ate, nothing very much more in terms of the arts. My mother was, neither of my parents were very, very well educated. They both came from Europe. But by some very marvelous evolution, I had 3 sisters and a brother. I was the youngest. They all studied instruments of one kind or another.
Despite the fact that this family was poor.
Was very, very poor. Somehow my mother found a way to get music lessons for us. I had 3 sisters. One played piano, 1 cello, 1 violin. Very, very well, all of them, very well. Yes, my eldest sister taught me piano from the age of 8 or 9 or 10. And then when I was around 12 or 13, I began studying the clarinet, and I went to the other winds as well. But piano was my basic instrument. Music has played a very, very important part in our life. It brought us together. And
one of our first conversations before we were married was, I said, we were talking about ballet. I had never been to a ballet, but I had been to a movie with Sid Charisse, and she was dancing Swan Lake, and I said I loved Swan Lake, and anyhow, be that as it may, somehow that developed an interest on his part.
And so I asked Ina to hum the tune from
I wasn't going to tell
the theme.
that.
No, that's all right. I asked her to hum the
theme.
Can you
sing it?
To Swan Lake. Can you sing it? And she did. And I was very impressed. And this kind of brought us together. I played with a dance band. But then while I was teaching for the Board of Education in New York City, I also gave private lessons as well. I went to homes and taught flute, clarinet, saxophone as well, and this enabled us to, well, it was in addition to what I was earning as a teacher in the school system. But I played clarinet with local symphony orchestras, a number of them for many years, which brought me great...
And also opera.
And operas.
Local opera.
Yes, I was also with an opera company, played clarinet with an opera company.
I think music, poetry, love affects a part of me that is not necessarily affected by other things in the world. I mean, for example, terrible things are happening on the planet. There's the war in Iraq, etc. And we're political, we listen to it, but there are times we just can't listen to it anymore, so we put on classical music. That helps.
And this, yes, spirituality, it takes me away from all of this. Basically the same thing that Anita said. I'm horrified by what I see on television and here on the radio. Spirituality involves the arts. It takes me away from the terrible things that are going on. As a musician, I listen to basically beautiful sounds. When I read poetry, it takes me into the realm of poetry. It takes my mind away from other things, and I basically am lifted practically into another sphere. So that this is where I am now, and my mind is surrounded by beauty, basically. And it affects the way I see others as well. If we have a disagreement of some kind, an hour later, if I'm reading something or I'm listening to something, this other difficulty has disappeared. We're who we are again to one another. And it affects the way I see people in terms of their goodness.